Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm your host, Rico, and this is the podcast known as Relatively Sound, the podcast that is somewhere under heaven. Now, today, if you might not have noticed, we're like we were last week's episode. Tony is away doing important things. So, today I have friend of the podcast, Chris Antonucci, back with me. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, I'm excited to be back. And Tony, you're doing great things, getting your education again.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that. We feel your presence.
Yes. And that is because today we are talking about an album that, Chris, you actually were with us when we talked about it a couple months ago now. We're talking about Tom Petty's second solo album, Wildflowers. But today we're talking about the box set and all the rest. If you don't know, in 2020, Tom Petty's family and the Heartbreakers, they carried on a mission that Tom was working on up to when he passed, which was to bring us his vision of the album Wildflowers, because it was originally supposed to be two disc album.
Mm-hmm.
The record label was like, no, that's crazy. That's too long. Like, we're not doing this, which is crazy because like the success he had up to that point. I mean, even with Full Moon Fever, it's like,
coming off the Wilburys, Full Moon Fever, and Into the Great Wide Open.
Yeah, you think they would have jumped at like more songs, but I guess back then,
and the greatest hits with the Last Dance with Mary Jane, or Mary Jane's Last Dance.
Yeah, so like,
but
it's crazy.
I can understand it being his new label.
True.
So first release on Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and the final version of Wildflowers is still a long album. It's over an hour long.
It's the rare CD era album that does not drag at all.
Exactly. I mean, if you want to hear our thoughts on Wildflowers, I will put a link in the description with the video we did with Tony, where he gave the album a first listen. And Chris and we made fun of Tony's opinion. No, we didn't. But it
was more you than me.
That's true. Yeah, I have the right. I can give him the brotherly love. But we won't dive too much unless we need to into the normal album version. But I do have with me the box set version. This is the vinyl box set. Wildflowers and all the rest. And as you see here, we got normal Wildflowers. We got all the rest, which is
what this episode will be.
Yeah, all the rest. And then you got the demos. You got a live version of songs from Wildflowers. And then you have a Finding Wildflowers, which is kind of like an alternative version of the album. Mm-hmm. All the rest, it is 10 songs.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with Something Could Happen, which I remember, I think, got a music video. Like, I think it was like kind of like, there weren't really singles, but I remember it was released before the whole album was released. This one, There Goes Angela, I think, and then the demo or the acoustic version of Wildflowers, I think.
I believe so.
And I remember first hearing Something Could Happen. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is so weird. I'm hearing a Wildflower song that I've never heard before, never knew it existed up until this point, never had heard the name before. And it was so weird because it was obviously after he passed.
Right.
So it was very emotional to hear something that was like new to me for the first time,
mm-hmm.
even though it's not new at all. I will say, maybe out of all the songs, to me, for some reason, it sounds the least like Wildflowers.
I can see that.
It has that production.
The production, yep.
Which some people love, some people hate. I love.
Well, it's more after this.
Well, true.
But at the time, it was perfect for Tom.
True. I mean, I know, like, Tony, like, when he heard Wildflowers, I don't think he was expecting the Rick Rubin production because he's used to Rick Rubin with like the Chili Peppers and
this is before Rick decided to make everything loud and
Yeah.
start the loudness wars.
But something can happen like that intro bit
Hmm.
with like the piano. It really kind of threw me off the very first listen. I was like, wow, this is kind of like darker than I was expecting.
Oh my God. When it started, I was like, oh shit, this is so good already. I
I mean,
just
yeah,
love it immediately.
I mean, it sounded fresh
Yeah.
and really crisp. Like it sounded like, I mean, we've never had another version of the song, so it's not like it was like remastered or anything, but
Right.
you can tell a lot of work was put into it. I think my favorite part of the song is just the contrast of the slightly darker verse with that chorus. That chorus is just very 90s petty. I don't know how else to put it. Like,
Hmm.
it opens up, it's a little bit more melodic. It's catchy, but it's not like over the top catchy.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a good song to start off the all the rest with.
Oh, it is. I mean, and I heard it. I'm like listening to it. I'm like, oh, has like a very like John Lennon influence
I can see
on,
that.
on the lyrics. Like it's very like self-doubting. Trying to find the lyrics for, but it was like, I'm not easy to know. My mind can change. My moods come and go. I'm not easy to please. Sometimes the woods get lost in the trees. He's just very just opening up his soul, like more so than on the regular album.
Yeah, it did kind of strike me as like the lyrics feeling almost more like Echo.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I'm glad you brought up that specific lyric with the forest and the trees because that's very reminiscent of the lyric in Wake Up Time,
Yep.
the closing track of Wildflowers.
And even House in the Woods a little bit too.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad that like this song in particular was, you know, rescued from the archive because it like you said, it kind of it feels like like an extension of Wildflowers, but it does seem like it goes a little deeper into the struggles in his life that he was facing at the time.
Right.
And I'm curious if like when the record label told him like, oh, you're gonna need to cut this, if he cut this one because it was a little bit more
Too
raw and
personal,
emotional.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably. I know. What I know. They had struggled with that. I remember. I
Yeah,
think in the documentary they like Tom and I know Rick probably said it. Like they struggled on like what to take out.
and I mean, I think for the most part they literally did the best job they could have because
Oh yeah.
I think of Wildflowers. I mean, it's a top 3 album for me.
Hmm.
It's I think it's a perfect album. And the
Right.
fact that I think a lot of these songs are perfect on all the rest shows you that, like, to me, this was when he was on the top of his game.
Yeah. This is like the whole box set makes you realize like what I had read quickly and I happened to glance quick at the conversations with Tom Petty, but where he had said this period was when Muse and Kraft just came together. Like he couldn't miss it all. And like I said the other day, in the text, like this is one of the pinnacles of songwriting.
Yeah, you said when you listen to this, it inspires you.
Yeah, every
As
time.
both of us, we write songs, we play music, and
Mhm.
when you hear an album like this, you're kind of like, I want to do that. I want to
Exactly.
be, and I usually don't have that a feeling. Like I love music, but I don't ever think I would want to be a singer songwriter as my career
Hmm.
or to play music as a career. I love talking about it really the most and listening to it. But when you listen to Wildflowers, you're like, damn, like the fact that someone could do this, especially when you listen to the demos,
Oh,
where that's all
we'll get to
him.
that. Yep.
But um, I will say the next song on All the Rest, Leave Virginia Alone, that was one of the few songs that if you were a big Tom Petty fan, you knew that after he wrote it and it was cut from this album, he gave it to Rod Stewart.
Yeah, that was surprising. Like when I first learned that, even
Exactly. And
before
I
that.
and I remember I went to listen to it because I'm like, when I was getting into Petty and I was literally listening to every little B-side or unreleased song that
Yeah.
I could. I was like, okay, there's no version of Tom's version online that you can listen to. But I'm like, I'll go listen to Rod Stewart. And I'm like, okay, but I'm just not a Rod Stewart fan. So I'm like, I don't love this. But I'm like, I like the lyrics and I like the music. I just don't necessarily love Rod Stewart's performance.
Mm-hmm.
So this was one I was really excited for to listen to because I'm like, oh, I know the lore. I know it's like a song that a lot of Petty fans are like, wait till we hear it. And when you hear it, you're like, this is absolutely a Tom Petty song. You're like,
100%.
how can you, at least with Never Be You from Long After Dark that we talked about in the last episode, when you listen to the other cover versions, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
this sounds like someone else could sing it because
Yeah.
it has more of a broad kind of sound when it comes to like production from the 80s and whatnot. But Leave Virginia Alone, it's like, yeah, this is right up there with any other song from Wildflowers, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
It's also like, I feel like he cut a lot of the songs with characters in the title in the song. You have Leave Virginia Alone, Harry Green, What's the Matter
Right.
with Louise, There Goes
Mm-hmm.
Angela,
Lonesome Dave. Yep.
Lonesome Dave. Yeah, so it is interesting that he cut a lot of the character songs from the album.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, looking at like all the other songs from all the rest, it's not actually in my like top 3 if I had to like rank them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that just goes to show you how great all the songs are.
Yeah, how
Or
strong they are.
if Leave Virginia Alone is like a song you consider great but not the best, like that's fan. I mean, Rod Stewart was, I'm sure, super happy that Tom gave him the song for him to record. And yeah, but no, Leave Virginia Alone, great song.
Oh, it's fantastic. And then it takes a huge left turn.
Yes, Climb
But
That Hill Blues.
that was definitely a surprise for me. It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
What is
I mean,
this?
again, we know Climb That Hill from She's the One.
Right, we knew that. I was like, oh shoot. So like it dated back from Wildflowers era.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively short song. It's under 3 minutes.
It's
And
just Tom and the acoustic.
yeah, which I see that it was credited to with Mike. I don't know if Mike wrote like the riff.
He might have just co-wrote it either way because he's also co-writer for the regular version that we're used to.
Exactly, yeah. But it's very different sounding. It's
Yeah.
really cool. I love it. It's a little weird that they put both versions on all the rest. Especially, well, I mean, we'll get to the other version here in a minute, but I'm glad it was included because it's kind of a more somber version of this. Like the original song is just like a rocker. It's got a great
Yeah.
groove to it. It's upbeat and makes you just kind of like
Oh,
bounce
yeah.
your head. But then when you hear it in this version, it sounds a lot like sadder. I mean, like the song's
Oh, yeah.
empowering lyrically, but this version, like it's just more humble. You know.
Yeah.
I
Makes me
love.
wonder, like, no, go ahead.
I just love the acoustic, like the voicings that he's playing on the acoustic guitar. It
Mhm.
sounds great.
So it makes me like wonder if that would have originally been on the album or if Tom found it when he was working on the, all the rest, or if they found it after. Oh no, never mind. So
Well-
he had to have found it.
But it's weird because like he included it on this. I see what you're saying because like this wasn't a demo because it wasn't included on the demos of Wildflowers, the demos. So this
Right.
had to have been what he considered a final song, like a final form. But somewhere along the line, someone had, I don't know if it was him or Mike, were like, what if we like put electric guitars and drums and bass and made it
They
a full
probably just want
song?
to try it out. Yeah.
And that was the version they ended up going with She's the One.
Yeah.
And I love that version, but this version is really cool, very different. I like his
sure.
vocals, how like
Yeah.
some parts is almost kind of whispery. It's like just softer.
Very late at night.
Yeah, to the point where I got it in my brain somehow when I was listening, I was spinning the record. I'm like, these vocals sound like he recorded them in like 2015. Like they sound like recent, like, and not that his voice has changed so much, but he just sounded like way older. And then
Yeah.
you sent me a picture of the liner notes, which I had with me the whole time. I could have just looked at, where I was like, no. All this was recorded back then for the Wildflower sessions. But yeah, it's a very cool way to hear a song that we've known for a while.
Yeah.
And I would say the most surprising thing for sure on all the rest, and just the whole box set.
Mm-hmm. For
Um,
sure.
Now I do remember Confusion Wheel. I think that was another song that was released prior to the box
Yeah.
set being released. And I remember when I first heard it, it was out of all these songs the one I was the most torn on.
Okay.
I I didn't love it. I was like, I like the song because it's really dark, and
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned with Something Could Happen, it
Yeah.
sounded way more raw than almost anything else, even more raw than like Crawling Back to You, right? Um,
So
in like the sense of like the lyrics, and like he's being very vulnerable. He's like saying like, I don't know how to feel, I don't know who to trust.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't know, it didn't hit me on a first listen. And then like one day I was listening to it, maybe it was the demo version where it's a little bit more stripped back, and like one day the lyrics really hit me. I don't know if I was just in my feels that day or whatever, but
Mm.
I was just like, wow, these lyrics are great. Like
Oh yeah.
they're even a little bit more like, because I feel like Tom, he writes in such a way where you could connect to a lot of his lyrics, because unlike Bruce, he's not always telling a story, right?
Right.
Or a character. Um,
He keeps it
but
open enough and like
yeah,
I don't want to say simple, but like
it is a little
it's
simpler.
simple, but like it can also be like complex at the same time.
Yeah.
Simplicity like gets you it's like, oh shit, it's not as simple as I thought it was.
But Confusion Wheel, I feel like, is even more simple because it's like him just, I don't know how to feel. And like, that's the one
Yeah.
of like confusion. Like, it's a wheel of confusion that just goes round and round.
Right. I know I think I might have been listening to Sirius XM, his channel, and I
Oh, yeah.
think it was Mike might have been talking and saying that um that was like inspired by like Buffalo Springfield. So to
Oh,
kind of
okay.
get that feel to it, like
Yeah.
especially like with Neil. So it's like I look at the lyrics as like Neil
I
meets
see
like
that now.
Lennon a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I could definitely see this as like a Neil
Even like the
song
guitar
lyrically.
solo and everything.
Yeah, which I got to say, the guitar solo in the demo version, I think is kick ass. I think that
Oh
same
yeah,
kind of style he should have kept in the final version, but um,
Mike
it's
did what he could.
yeah, and I do think it's a very different. Like, it doesn't really sound like anything on Wildflowers,
No, not at all.
but it somehow still fits perfectly with all the other songs.
Oh, definitely.
Now I am curious about your opinion on the next track, California, because it was one of the songs on She's the One.
Yep.
I've always really loved the song. I'm now even more biased towards the song now that I live in California.
Mm-hmm.
But some people online are divided. Some people hate the She's the One version because the one difference in both versions is at the end
Uh,
of the backing vocals. Sometimes you gotta trust and it's like very kind of not shouty, but it's very upfront in the mix.
apparently
And
he didn't. Apparently he hated that addition.
it feels very much something like you'd hear on a soundtrack, like on a movie, like
Mm-hmm.
it, because it's California's very feel good song. And
Oh, I
I
love
mean,
it. Yeah.
it's like his love song to California. It's like, yeah, California's
Yep.
treated me great.
Mm-hmm.
But some people, when this version came out, they're like, thank God there's a version without those backing vocals. I love those backing vocals. I mean, I see why people would find them a slightly annoying, but maybe just because it's the version I've always known up until this point. I
Yeah, I
like those
get used
backing
to it.
vocals. But
I know sometimes I do like if I'm listening to all the rest and it's that and it's California plays like near the end comes, I will like in my head just be singing
mhm,
the ones from She's the One. Yeah,
yeah,
I love that song. It's got a that bird's feel to it.
yeah. Again,
Yes.
another simple song musically. Like, it's very
Hmm.
simple. But I
But that
just
one
I
also seems to be very like an outlier of a lot of the Wildflowers material as well.
yeah, because it's like,
Musically, yeah,
but lyrically, it's like he's. I mean, the only thing I can think of, it's like maybe he was looking at his life at that time and going, "What's like a bright spot right now in my life? Oh, it's
he's
the time I spent in California. Like,
always loved California. Yeah,
yeah, he has so many songs about Gainesville and where he's from that he's like, I gotta have another song for the place I call also my home that isn't Florida.
right.
But yeah, I love it. I love some of the simple lyrics, just like, I got work later on. Like I've always loved that line. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, I got work later on too. So yeah, great song. But I definitely agree with you that I could see why this one would have been cut. But I'm
Hmm.
glad we got both versions, and there is the third version with slightly different lyrics too.
Yeah.
Now this next song is I would say maybe also like the most, besides Climb the Hill Blues, like the most interesting thing from this box set. Harry Green.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about it? Because you were texting me the other day when we were both listening back to this box set, and you're like, "This is such a different song."
Oh yeah. Again, it's just Tom the acoustic. I felt like it was really like I don't know how it would fit in because it's Tom like really going back to his life, thinking about his days in high school and how I think it was based on an actual person, Harry Green, who was like his protector, you could say.
Yeah.
This Tom was definitely like, in in the South in the 60s, like not an ideal place for
No.
when the counterculture hippie. So it sounds like he was friends with him and with Harry Green, who was his friend and protected him from like the bullies, and probably because Tom probably had a long hair and he was a musician.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought it was like felt weird compared to like everything else on the album, which is an examination of his failing marriage. And then you had mentioned a connection to one of the songs on the regular album.
I did. I'm trying to think of now what was the. Do you remember what the connection was?
You connected it to "You Wreck Me," the because it's also about high school in a
Yeah,
way.
I'll be the well. Yeah, and at Wake Up Time, he sings about you were so cool back in high school. What happened? So, because yeah, I was like, I was trying to like, what is the connection? Like, you're right. It's a specific song about someone in his life, but
Yeah,
it's not in that moment of his life. Then, it was like decades earlier when he was in high school. And I'm
right.
like, there are a couple lyrics on Wildflowers about high school because I've
Hmm.
always loved both those lines in "You Wreck Me" and "Wake Up Time."
Yeah,
Um, but it's such a like musically, it's just a gentle, peaceful song. But
like something like "Don't Fade on Me" or
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it like
not a
chords wise, it's
yeah,
just like major chords the whole time.
yeah,
But then the story ends so suddenly and tragically, like
yeah,
he gets in a car accident and dies,
right.
and if you didn't know it was about like a real person in Tom's life, you would have thought like, oh, he's like writing a song about a character, and then like here's a like a
Probably a
plot twist.
reflection of him or whatever. Yeah,
But it's like no, like that's just his life, and it's yeah. It I think musically it kind of fits because, like you said, it kind of has like the "Don't Fade on Me," just kind of acoustic guitar, or like Wildflowers too. But
yeah,
yeah, lyrically, it's you have to I feel like make some connections, and I can again see why it was cut.
yeah,
But um, man, you have almost like a little EP of like character songs from Wildflowers that were all cut that I think are very cool.
oh, for sure.
Um, Next song, one of my favorite underrated Tom Petty songs, I gotta say,
Hmm.
"Hope You Never."
Yeah,
What I can't think of too many Tom Petty lyrics that are so like bitter, but in like such like a sarcastic way of like, I hope you never fall in love with someone like you. It's
Yeah,
such a great lyric.
that's
Like,
like almost very Dylan like fuck you type in a way.
exactly. Yeah. It's because it starts like, I hope you never fall in love. And you're like, okay,
Okay.
that's pretty mean to say to someone
Mhm.
with someone like you. And you're like, it's almost like at first you don't think it's an insult.
Oh yeah,
And
like
then,
go
yeah, it's
ahead.
just like, no, I hope you don't have to experience someone like you because you're such a pain. Like, you're awful. Like, I,
Uh,
it's great.
oh, I know. It's just saying, I hope you never need no one. Hope you treasure your independence, and then never fall in love with someone like you. Hope you never give a damn. Hope you never lose your perspective. It's like, ooh.
Yeah. And then like I feel like in the kind of bridge section that he repeats twice, he's like,
Oh, I wish you
I
well, right?
wish you well, yeah. And then I
Yep.
started to ramble on, like so it's almost like he's acknowledging yeah, I wish you well, and like maybe I'm going on and on too much, but at the end of the day, he's like, yeah, I hope you don't fall in love with someone like you because I have, and from experience, it is not pleasant.
Yeah, it's like that positively Fort Street line. Just for one time, you would stand inside my shoes and see what a drag it is to be you or see you. It's like, oh, damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I will say like with this song, like musically too, it's backed by like a pretty mean like chord progression, and it's got a real driving,
Oh
which
yeah.
I do think doesn't fit Wildflowers. I also never thought it fit She's the One either. It's just one. I feel like it's one of his more bitter, angry songs that I almost feel like it would fit more like an Echo type album.
Definitely, but you can all see why he did cut it from
Yeah,
original album.
because I also kind of wonder too. I'm like, maybe he cut it because he's like, I needed to write this song for me, but like, maybe he didn't want his daughters hearing this song like later
Yeah.
later on. Like, it's. But I mean, I love it. I mean, I can't relate to the song, but I just think it's genius. Like,
Oh yeah, it is.
it's just fantastic. Um, so and this version, as far as I know, is like no different than the She's the One version.
I don't think there's any
It
major
sounds
difference.
exactly the same.
Hmm.
Then you get track 8. You get the first like taste we got of this All the Rest album with Somewhere Under Heaven.
Hmm.
We were talking about how I was in class when I first saw the news and listened to it. Right off the bat, when I heard it, I'm like, wait, this is a Wildflower song? I'm like, that is not. I'm like, if you told me this was Full Moon Fever or something, or like Learning to Fly, I'm like, this isn't Rick Rubin. Like, this has to be like Jeff Lynne or something.
Oh yeah, I can see that with the drum sound.
Yeah, and like the
I
synths
guess
and like
even yeah the
the
even
arp
yeah. I mean,
the kind of arpeggios too. Like, I'm like, I loved
yeah.
it,
Oh
but
yeah.
I was surprised by how much I loved it because I'm just now finally getting around to like appreciating Learning to Fly as much as you do, because I actually probably at one point in my life thought Long After Dark was a much better album. I don't think that anymore. Um, but because for me, sometimes Jeff Lynne's production a little can go a long way, which is why I
Hmm.
always appreciated Highway Companion, because it was also produced by him, and I don't think it has that same sound. It was recorded way later than those two albums, but
Hmm.
um, it's a very in your face track with the arpeggios, the drums, like you were mentioning. It To me, the music and the lyrics match so perfectly. Like,
Right.
I don't know what it is about it. It's also kind of another song where it's kind of a character song. He's talking about little Janie and
Oh
her
yeah.
dad, and um, I associate it living in Washington, because when the song came out, I was still living in Washington at the time,
Hmm.
and he sings about like the sky and the clouds and the hurricanes.
Yeah.
And even though you don't get hurricanes in Washington, we always get in Washington, you get weather where it's like sunny one second and then all of a sudden there's like dark storm clouds. And I just started associating that with that lyric in Somewhere
Oh,
Under
okay.
Heaven.
I like that.
So anytime here where it gets really cloudy all of a sudden and dark, I think of this song. Even though musically it's a lot happier sounding than a cloudy, dark, rainy day, but I don't know. It's just like it's a good mix between the contrast of the lyrics and the music for me.
No, yeah, I definitely had like the same reaction, like I mentioned with something that happened, like the opening. I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing already. I heard like Mike Campbell say that he wanted to write like something like Jimmy Page, so that's why I had a lot of that, like a lot of guitars on it
Yeah.
too. But yeah, just I think it was also like the first song I listened to when got the news that Tom passed away, so
Hmm.
it definitely has
It's
that connection.
emotional. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so good though.
And then like there's just those huge chords throughout the song too.
Yes.
Where I don't know if it's probably Mike just like and it's just like ooh it like cuts through you like
Yep. Or Tom, yeah, whoever.
and I think some of Tom's best vocals.
Hmm.
I sing a lot. It is not easy to hit that chorus where he's singing Somewhere Under Heaven.
Yeah.
Like it's impressive. And I mean, I've always loved Tom as a singer. I know some people like my girlfriend Lindsay,
Mhm.
not the biggest fan of his voice. She's very particular with singers. Um, she doesn't like a lot of the people I like because like she told me like if there was if someone else was the front lead singer for U2, she's like U2 could be in my top 3 bands because I love the music. She just does not like Bono. Now I will say Tom Petty, his style of music isn't like something that she would be instantly into.
Yep.
But there's some Tom Petty songs she likes. She loves the music of Mary Jane's Last Dance. But she's never been a fan of his vocals. And I don't think they're as up there with like Dylan's vocals where you have to kind of learn to just, they are what they are, you know?
Yeah.
But he's got some songs where he belts it. And Somewhere Under Heaven is a belter for sure.
Definitely.
Track 9, you got Climb That Hill. We kind of already talked about it. I will say this version is a different version than She's the One. And I don't like it nearly as much because of the drums. I don't know if you noticed, the drums sound just slightly off the mix. Not the playing, but like they sound real like they record like in a garage. I don't know what it is. It just sounds more like a demo version of the She's the One version.
Interesting. I don't think I ever really picked up on that.
Like I probably, if you play me like the first 2 seconds of both versions, I can immediately tell you which one is which.
Okay, so maybe
Not trying to like show off. I'm just for some reason I hear the drums of the Wildflower, all the rest version, and I'm just like, yeah, it's not.
Well, it's probably just mixed to fit the rest of the songs and all the rest compared.
I think other than that, it's
pretty much the same thing.
The same lyrics, same composition. Yeah. But like I said, I've always loved the song from She's the One.
Yep.
I like the lyrics a lot. For some reason, I love the weed was burning down the wind. Mm-hmm. He does mention weed in a later song. Not on all the rest, but you know, and then I always like the line too, where like he's talking about again another character, little Lucy, such a doll. I like to climb her garden wall, but she only sees me as a friend. But it's an empowering. I love the chorus that you gotta climb that hill one more time, get up in the morning, make my way.
Yep. Now it's like making me wonder, like all the songs on Wildflowers, like I don't think there's any characters per se.
I don't think there's any names. I can't like
maybe that's
the only the only character, but it's not by name, is to find a friend. Middle of his life, left his wife. Even though it's like, okay, I feel like he's singing it about himself.
Oh, it definitely was.
But in the live version, no names, yeah. Because in the live version on this box set of To Find a Friend, he talks about it. We don't play this one often, and he's like, it's kind of funny. He starts playing the song, and then he stops, and he starts talking again, and he's like, we all met someone in our life that is like this, but yeah, there's no names on Wildflowers, so it must have been a conscious effort to like, I'm
Probably.
gonna cut songs. Why don't we just cut all the ones with the characters in it?
Who knows?
I mean, if that's the case, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, because I just
If,
like realized it as we're talking about. I was like, oh, okay. We're noticing like a lot of
yeah,
like characters by names compared to.
and then I start wondering, like, up to this point, did he write a lot of songs with characters' names? Because the first one I go to when I think of like Heartbreakers is Mary Jane, but
Mm-hmm.
think about when that was recorded.
Around
That's
the
not
same
like an earlier
time,
song.
right? I would have to like.
Yeah,
I mean, you
so
have Spike.
no, that's true. Which,
Oh, Mary got a brand new. Okay, so he had done it before.
but I feel like he really started doing it around this point, but then he cut them off. So
Yeah,
it's
Lonesome
we just
Dave and Louise as well.
yeah. So it's like we just kind of when this box set was released, it's like we're still making connections, which
Yeah, which
shows
is
you how
great.
great this art is. You know,
Yeah, and
think
then we
last
finish off with an underrated one for me.
yes, I completely agree. Hung up and
Hung Up and
overdue,
Overdue also was the ender on She's the One as well.
or was it?
Yes, I consider it the ender, and then you have the little
You don't think of
thing.
airport as the
No,
hung up and overdue. Um,
it's another
slightly
heartbreaker. No pun intended.
no. I mean, one of the most I would say just the title alone
Yeah,
is just like you're like oof. Like I hope you never from the title alone you don't know what to expect really, but from this one you're like oof.
yeah,
Um, and this version I think is a superior version because the backing vocals you get on this version are just I think they're mixed better. If you don't
they
know,
are. That it's also Carl Wilson on it, and
mm-hmm.
I think Tom had he obviously probably purposefully wanted Carl's vocals to be better in the mix than what they were on the She's the One soundtrack, because you could definitely make him out more than the previous version.
Yeah,
Even the same thing on Honeybee on this box set.
I think you were the one that pointed it out to me, and I was like, I don't even think I realized up until that point that he was also on that song.
Yeah, and
Um,
Hung Up and Overdue is very much influenced by the Beach Boys, like
that
that.
vocal melody, the gonna go see it tonight, like that
Yeah.
little run.
Oh yeah.
Um, I also felt like when he mentions the safari, I'm like, is that also like a little, thing he put in there intentionally?
Maybe. This is definitely one. Tony, you would love Hung Up and
Yeah,
Overdue
that's
for that.
I know. This song is like the main reason I want him to listen to this box set,
Yeah.
or I guess just give him "She's the One" because he would also hear it on that album too. But yeah, he would. I mean, he might almost go to the point where he's like, okay, is he overdoing it? But no, like it's as someone who only has a limited knowledge of the Beach Boys, I'm
Yep.
like, even I know this sounds like the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah, it's like very much like something either that would be on like Surf's Up, or I know Thomas talked about his admiration for for a lot of those like albums that came out after Pet Sound, especially in the early '70s. But
Yeah,
also Ringo on the drums.
yeah, true.
And I
Um,
thought for the longest time, like George Harrison did the slide solo, but it wasn't. But I think it's just Mike
it
doing a good homage to him.
I feel like it had to have been kind of the way he played it was on purpose
Hmm.
to sound like George.
Definitely has that George feel to it.
Yeah. I think it's a great song. The lyrics are very hard hitting. Kind of again, he's singing about like another person, but like it's obviously about him, It's
But
like
oh yeah, this one is definitely like you could tell he doesn't want his marriage to end, but just doesn't see any more to it. But he still loves her.
And I can't think of a more devastating line than "We're overdue for a dream come true."
Oh yeah,
And the way he sings it too, it's like just enough where it's not like self pity. Like you
right.
actually feel bad for him,
Hmm.
and I find it relatable. Like there's been times where you just kind of feel like you're kind of just down in that mood where you're kind of like kind of catch a break, and like yeah, it's and I love. You were mentioning how in the demo version there's no bridge.
Yeah, so it's like it's the I'm so hung up on her now, I'm so strung out on her now. I don't think it had a gift from the sun to the moon. I hope something changes soon. So I was like,
Yeah,
whoa, there's no bridge.
and it doesn't do that whole part where it's like the like I don't know how to describe it, where like it's just the instrumental part, like where there's like the
Oh,
bass, like and it kind of built like the
yeah.
instrumentation drops out, and then they come back in
Oh
again.
yeah,
You get
for
the
the
harmonies and the slide solo. So yeah, I love the guitar arpeggios, like the acoustic ones in the
mhm.
middle section of the song. Like it's
Yeah.
underrated. But I
Oh,
will say I don't think it wasn't until this version where I really like. I think on She's the One, I was always disappointed in the last three songs. I mean, Airported is what it is.
hmm.
Supernatural Radio never was like a favorite of mine, and it still isn't to this day.
That's
And
pretty
then
cool.
this one is there too. Like those, I think they're like the last three. So it was just never. I know the end. I much prefer the opening to She's the One than the closing of She's the One.
Yeah, 'cause you have like the preferred versions of Walls and Angel
Angel
Dream.
Dream, yeah,
Then it has that I'd have to look up the track listing, but it is like one last one. I thought there was like a no, I think it follows the Angel Dream,
yeah. Because there is another instrumental like Hope on Board.
but that one's
Wait,
before Walls.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, underrated song. Uh,
Well worth it, the whole, all the rest.
yeah. Oh, and the great part is like getting there. It's a joy.
Yeah.
Like even if I had to like pick a least favorite, like even if I said like, oh, Harry Green is my least favorite, it's still a great. It's a damn great song.
Yeah. There's just not a
But
bad song.
yeah. Um, and then like you have the home recordings.
Oh, that
I mean,
there goes Angela to start it. It's like even Benmont like was like wondering why they didn't do it.
yeah, like because all of these are like just Tom
Yeah.
and an
Workshop.
acoustic guitar,
Hmm.
or in one case a piano, and then there's a couple overdubs now and again. There's a couple vocal overdubs, like harmonies, and then a couple electric guitar solos.
Yeah.
But yeah, there goes Angela. It's such a pretty song. One of his, I think, his prettiest songs.
Mm-hmm.
The melody is just super sweet.
It's like
Um,
he could write a song so good that they didn't even like properly record it.
yeah, like, and I get it. This album, I feel like had to have been some of the most amount of songs he ever wrote for an album.
I think
Um,
so.
but like, yeah, like how does this not make it into another song? It's great.
Yeah.
It's if it was for another singer songwriter, this could be like their best song they ever
Oh,
released.
easily.
And the fact that it's was never properly released or played with the band is crazy.
Yep.
Um,
I mean, you don't know how it feels is pretty much
well, there's one difference.
similar. Go ahead.
You have he had a great lyric. He had the lyric, "I'm so tired of being tired. Sure as night will fall day. Most things I worry about never happen anyway." He had that line. He's like, it's such a great line. How do I put it in a song? And I don't know which came first because it's on both songs, but you have that song. That song ended up being in after the bridge in "Crawling Back to You," right on
Yeah, the final
Wildflowers.
verse.
Yeah, but he includes it in this home recording version of "You Don't Know How It Feels,"
Mm-hmm.
and I will say it doesn't quite fit because I just will always associate that line with "Crawling Back to You," which is a much more dramatic song than You Don't Know How It Feels.
Maybe that's why he liked it a lot, but he didn't want to completely toss. Like probably just wanted to move it somewhere else
Yeah, and
because
he
it
did
didn't fit.
he made the right move. He
Yeah.
made the right
Oh,
move.
absolutely.
But yeah, this is one of the few demos on here where it's just, besides that, it's just yeah an acoustic version of the song.
I think
Um,
California was the same thing.
except that one did have an additional lyric.
Oh, that's right.
The I forgive my enemies, I forgive my
Yes.
past. Some days wait and see.
Oh man, how did he
I,
again? How did he cut that one out?
I know it's like he must have been pissed doing that song. Not only did they make him add in the backing vocals, which no one likes.
I think that was just later on when he was
Yeah,
the soundtrack.
yeah, but I mean, still, like
Yeah.
California, great song. I love that version, and I know a lot of people like that version too because it's kind of just a shorter, sweet version of California.
Hmm.
I think you have A Feeling of Peace, another song that's like There Goes Angela, where, as far as I know, the band never saw. Like,
As far as we know.
there's,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure one day they'll be like, for 1 week only on iTunes exclusive, you can listen to the band version of Feeling of Peace. But it's a great song. I love it.
I like it.
It's, I could see out of all the songs why maybe it's the one that didn't get the full band treatment. But
Hmm.
I like the electric guitar in it. I like his playing.
Yeah.
I feel
Me
like it's
too.
not his norm. And yeah, it has nice parts. I really like the chorus, just the melody. It
Yeah.
is very relaxing. It's
Oh,
peaceful.
totally.
It's
Hmm.
like the lyrics. Leave
Leave
Virginia alone. I
pretty
think is
much
the same.
same. Yeah. Crawling Back to You is a little more up tempo.
It's very up to the strumming is completely different.
Yep.
You have him. You have the ooze kind of sounding different too. They're more
Oh
like
yes, that's right.
ooh. It's
Yep.
like it's almost like you can hear like the rhythm in the song. It's kind of like a snap and kind of like different tempo.
Yep.
Um, different lyrics. He sings about a Trojan horse at one point.
Oh, that's right.
Things got bad, then got worse, which is
Mhm.
actually you're like, how can you make Crawling Back to You even more somber and dreary? You add in that lyric. And then I will say I like this version a lot, but the one thing that I think I would have loved to have seen in a version is that guitar solo. I assume it was him. It is maybe my favorite Petty solo because when you listen to Heartbreaker Shack, most of the solos it's going to be Mike, right?
Yeah.
And then you know when Hypnotic Guy came out and they did Shadow People live, he got his own turn to solo, which was cool.
He
But
did, I think, one of the solos on Mary Jane as well.
yeah, yeah, and that's always cool. But the solo on this version of Crawling Back to You is really cool. It's the whole song has like a Western feel to me,
Right.
a kind of cowboyish, and
Which he
yeah,
always loved
yeah, and
when he was a kid.
it's not going to ever beat the Wildflowers version, of
No,
course.
never.
But it's one of the versions on here that is, I would say, vastly different. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you still have a lot of the same lyrics and same melodies, but it does have like a fresh paint of coat on it, you know.
Nice starting point.
And you know, Don't Fade on Me
Mhm.
also is kind of similar in that regards, where if you listen to it without really listening to it too much, you're like, this is pretty much the same.
Yeah,
But you
different
have different lyrics where he gets very specific. And I think, and I don't like doing assumptions, especially when it's about someone's personal life. I get the feeling that this version of the song was about Howie. He sings about the bass player
Yeah.
meeting a girl. He doesn't ever sing anything about like drugs, but he makes it seem like the character in the song meeting the girl is like bad
Yeah.
for him. She's no good for you. I don't know. It gives me vibes where the final lyrics on Wildflowers are vastly different. They're less specific.
Well, wasn't he also the bass player in Mudcrutch too?
Who? How?
Um,
Oh, yeah. Tom was. Yeah. So you're right. It could.
it could have been like I don't know when he met his first wife. So
Yeah, that's true. because I don't know, whenever I hear "Don't Fade on Me," like just the title, like
Yeah.
yeah, relationship, like you're fading from me in a relationship, but I don't know, just with what happened with Howie,
Yeah.
like Howie, like almost like literally faded from the band to the point where he wasn't even on the album cover for Echo.
Sadly, yeah.
But my favorite thing on this version, besides the lyrics being a little
Hmm.
bit more specific, he even sings about them being in a band called the Rising Suns. Which, if I ever start a band, I think that's what I'm just going to name the band.
Nice.
Um, I almost prefer the melody in the chorus of this version of "Don't Fade on Me."
Hmm.
Instead of just doing the "Don't Fade" like that kind of
Yeah.
stop and go, he does the "Don't fade on me, you're all I've got," where he kind of goes higher
Mm.
up. I think
Yep.
that's lovely, and in fact, it's one of the few things that I kind of wish he would have kept original on the
Yeah.
final version. Um, I get it. The
Yeah.
one that made it fits it because
For
the
whatever.
song's kind of haunting, but I
Yep.
really love his vocal performance on this version of "Don't Fade on Me."
Yeah, it's good.
But I mean, "Don't Fade on Me" is a highlight for me on. I mean, all the songs are highlights, but
Yeah.
I think it's slightly underrated. "Don't Fade on Me."
Mhm.
I love that guitar riff, which I have to assume is like in drop D.
Probably a different tuning.
Yeah. Higher
We talked,
place. Oh no,
yeah, we talked
Confusion
about
Wheel.
Confusion Wheel. We talked about that. We covered it.
Yeah. A
Pretty much the same.
higher place. I think what the only difference is like a harmonica in it.
Maybe in the
It's either
beginning.
that version or the Finding Wealth. There's one version of a higher place where it starts off with a harmonica, which every time I listen to it, I'm like, whoa, what is this doing here?
It might have been this one, but I think like even the album version ends with it.
It does. There's just one version that begins with it where I
It
know
might be
the
this one.
Wildflower version does not.
Right.
So pretty much the same. Higher place, great song.
Next
Um,
one. There's a break in the rain,
yeah.
which subtitle that also, if I use that correctly, Have Love Will Travel. Now they made it, if I remember, they made it a point of saying it's not like the same one that ended up on Last DJ.
That makes zero sense to me.
Right, because the chorus is
It's the exact same.
the only thing I could think of is he did what Bruce did does well takes a part from a song and use it for another part. So that's my only, but it's like word for word,
Same
same
melody.
melody and everything. Yeah.
It is in a different key because I've played both songs before on guitar. The
Hmm.
both songs different chords, but I mean it's the same melody, it's the same
Yeah.
words, the same cadence. But the Break in the Rain part, I almost kind of consider it two songs, like a Break in the Rain,
Yeah.
Hello with Travel. I really love a Break in the Rain. Um, it's one of just those very calming songs. And again, growing up in Washington where it rains every day, there being a break in the rain is such like a nice thing to have. And to be honest, I prefer this version. The last DJ version, I just have never liked that verse about the all those boys who play rock and roll, all
Ah,
those
it's one of my
that
favorites.
I see. That's where you and I are completely. I think it's super corny. It's not bad. It's just
I
you
love it.
know. I mean, I kind of like the callback to the Jesus line because I feel like it's a little bit like free falling, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, this is a very a nice little Easter egg, I think, even
Hmm.
though the band doesn't think it's an Easter egg. To Find a Friend, basically same version
Yeah.
acoustically.
Only a Broken Heart, I believe, was also.
I swear on this version of Only a Broken Heart, he emphasizes the word like where he's like the don't be afraid anymore.
Mhm.
I swear he sings it slightly different, but I mean that's being very nitpicky. It's pretty much
Yeah.
the same thing.
Mhm.
Um,
Wake Up
maybe
Time. Oh, sorry. Were you gonna
no,
continue?
yeah, I was gonna say I feel like maybe the most intimate moment on these home recordings is "Wake Up Time."
The only one with the piano.
Yeah, which I think in the documentary where like Tom was like gonna like oh Ben might like come play piano on it. I don't know if it was it Rick or was it Benoit that or like no like you need to be the one to play piano on the song.
It might have been Benmont.
Yeah, like he's like, I love the song, but and I would love to play on it, but it's such a personal song, you know.
Yeah, and I can't play the same as you play it.
Yeah. I think it's great. I mean, I love it. It's a probably top 3 song on the album for me. Like it's fantastic.
For sure.
Definitely
Re-rate.
different than the other version, which we'll get to.
Oh yeah.
Um,
We already covered Hung Up and Overdue.
yeah, missing the bridge.
Yeah. But
And then
everything else.
it
Wildflowers.
closes with Wildflowers, and there is a nice little Easter egg in this one too.
Mm-hmm.
Near the end, he changes the chord progression slightly, and he starts kind of like humming or whistling, and it's the melody of "To Find a Friend." And it wasn't until I like heard this, and because I've played both of these songs on guitar a bunch. They're fun songs. I'm like, yeah, both of these songs have very similar melodies and chords. It's just like "To Find a Friend's" a little faster. The changes are like da da da.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because I'm sure he came up with this song and he was like, oh, this would be kind of cool to a section. And then kind of like you're talking about with Bruce, he was kind of like, wait, maybe the section could be a whole new song. Which,
Very possible.
I mean, I love "To Find a Friend." So,
Yeah.
um,
That home recordings disc is just phenomenal. The only thing I could like that I compare it to is the Beatles White Album demos from the box set from 2018. It was like those like the only two that I could think of that just like stand apart from like all these other demos that like maybe groups will release.
a deluxe version of an
Songs are like
album.
you can see the songs are like already there.
Yeah.
The structure of it.
This one feels very different. It's special. It literally when you listen to it, especially if you have a good sound, stereo system, like it sounds like he's in the room with you, just
Yeah.
performing, and it's a goat. Like when I first heard it, I was kind of like, "This is great," and like what you were saying, like a lot of demos from other bands, you're like, "This, I'll listen to this every now and again, but not. It's not going to be a go-to thing." This I listen to all the time. If I'm reading or I'm relaxing, I need something kind of quiet, something chill. It's like perfect,
Yeah.
and it's just
I think
nice, cool way to hear the songs in a different light,
right. And I think Rick had told Tom too about those White Album demos, so that definitely played a part in Tom writing and working on the songs as well.
Yeah. And I'm super glad they included this. I don't know if Tom was, because like we know that all the rest, that was what he wanted to do.
Right.
But I'm not sure where it stops and where it begins with like the demos, the live album, the alternative one. But the demos to me is it's essential.
Oh, for sure.
The live album, I also think is really cool. I don't think it's as essential. I mean, a lot of these versions we've heard on other, like, a handful of these I think are on the, what was that box set called? The live
The
one?
live anthology.
Live anthology, yeah.
Or maybe like different from different times, but yeah, some of them were
Fillmore too, I think. Like, I swear the version of It's Good to Be King is either on the Fillmore one or on the live anthology.
you would have to check the date on
Yeah, the
the
exact.
booklet. I know live anthology I think is the 30th anniversary concert version.
Oh, okay. And like I said, I was reading earlier that there's one of these songs, I'll have to look it up, is from like 2017, as recent as 2017. And then you got the alternative versions, which they titled Finding Wildflowers. Very interesting album. I'm not quite sure, like, still the full, like, idea, mindset behind it, because
I think it was just to see, hear how the album eventually came to be from
yeah,
demo stage to this to final version.
because some of these are slightly different. Like, it starts off with A Higher Place, which
I mean, you had, I think,
a
Ooh.
different drummer.
Was it Kenny Aronoff, I think?
Yep, you're correct.
Oh,
So, and that one also has a little bit more harmonica in it, like I think at the beginning as well, not just the end.
so that might have
Um,
been when he was auditioning different drummers. Now,
um,
the third cabin down below, is that the one where he's asking Rick if the tempos are correct?
yes, yeah.
Okay. I thought that was
Um,
cool to hear.
then we have Crawling Back to You. I love this version. I don't think I can say it's my favorite version, but man,
It's just like, wow, he definitely worked on that song.
I love Steve as a drummer and I love Stan.
Hmm.
And Steve is fantastic, and I love his drumming on all the rest of the Heartbreakers albums. But there's something about Stan's drumming with the rest of the guys where it's, I don't know, it's just everything falls into place perfectly. The song just has a little bit more aggressive like vibes to it, you know? It's a
Yeah.
little more, I think it's a little faster, a little heavier, slightly a little jammier. Everything
Hmm.
else is the same. The vocals sound very similar. Backing vocals are slightly different, but not much. But this version is just like, I'm curious what Tony would think because I know he also thought this was his favorite on Wildflowers, like me.
Yeah.
I'm curious if he would like the little harder version better.
Hmm.
Um, Only Broken Heart. I guess this was actually the B side to A Higher Place, which I didn't even know A Higher Place had a B side.
Probably in a different country.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
definitely the acoustic guitars are more up front and
yes.
driving.
Yeah. Other than that, it's
Pretty similar.
pretty similar. Yeah. You have
Driving down to Georgia.
Yes, which we already kind of talked about. It definitely doesn't fit Wildflowers, but it's a cool
Oh,
song.
yep.
It was recorded in '92, so slightly earlier.
Correct me, which is
Kind of
different. I'm gonna say
acoustic. It's
it's
acoustic, but
definitely.
it's still got the drums.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's those the bamboo sticks maybe, but it's definitely like yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
heard whoa.
and because that's your favorite.
Yeah,
So every time I hear it, I'm always kind of like, this must like kind of weird Chris out every time he hears it because it's so different. It sounds like a rehearsal take almost, and not in a
right.
bad way. Like they don't sound bad. It
I
just
mean
sounds
maybe
like you know,
probably an early take, if anything.
yeah. Good to Be King also is very different. It's also kind of stripped back. I wouldn't say
I forget.
acoustic, but it's it's shorter.
Hmm.
There's no strings if I recall,
No,
which is one of my favorite parts of It's Good to Be King.
yeah.
But yeah, it's slightly more acoustic. Now you
Hmm.
talked about House in the Woods. Love this version because
Yep.
in the middle, it's very much the same song as the Wildflowers version, but right dab in the middle, they changed the tempo and the feel, and it's like jazzy and
Yeah,
that walking bass line.
it's like where did that come from?
It reminds me. I swear it's like they took the idea of driving down to Georgia and were like, let's put it into a song that's going to end up on Wildflowers, and then they were kind of like, actually, no, this doesn't fit. This was
Yeah.
actually recorded in '92. Another great rocking version of Honeybee, slightly different lyrics.
Hmm.
He at one point sings, "She's a Mississippi jelly cake, furry wool in her drawer." Um, yeah, I mean,
Otherwise, it's pretty much the same.
yeah,
I like
it's
that.
such a fun song. Then you have what was the B side to "You Don't Know How It Feels," which is "Girl in LSD."
Mhm.
Maybe the most humorous Tom Petty song of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
But this was like a full on song where he's
Oh
like,
yeah,
I
every
fell in
drug.
love with the girl on a certain drug, and then he finds a way
Yep.
to make it rhyme and how
Yep.
the relationship ended in a bad way.
I think he did it at Bridge School in '94 as well.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
Yep.
And I swear, wasn't it in the documentary he wanted to end Wildflowers on Girl in LSD?
Oh, I have to rewatch that. But that
I swear he said that, which is why when it was on this version but not the last song, I was kind of like, so maybe either I misheard it or whoever his family was just like, we can't end on Girl in LSD. Like that's crazy. But it's a fun song. Like
yeah.
Rick Rubin describes it as a fun throwaway. it's maybe a little bit more than a throwaway, but it's just like a fun song.
Yeah, lighthearted.
Yeah. Um,
Uh,
Cabin Down Below, the kind of acoustic version.
hmm
B side to It's Good to Be King. I like it. Cabin Down Below has never like been one of my favorites from Wildflowers. If I had to like rank
Yeah.
them, but it's a cool version.
hmm
Um, I swear, whenever I would listen to the Tom Petty radio station, they would
Yeah.
always play the acoustic version. Like even before this got released, I feel like
Hmm.
they would play it as like a look at all the cool stuff we have in the archives in the vault.
Interesting.
Um,
I think
then you,
Wildflower.
which it's
I
got
think
your
it's
boy
Ringo.
Ringo. Yeah,
Oh shit, I forgot
he
about that.
drums on it.
I'm gonna have to
Um,
listen to it again.
and I swear when I heard it the other day, because they do like a false start. They like start playing it and they stop, and he's hitting on the hi hat, and it's like really loud. And then when they
Yeah.
restart the song, it's quieter. So, but yeah, this one has it's got Ringo Starr on the drums. Don't Fade on
Okay.
Me, which
I think
was this version was on an American Treasure.
similar to the demo too.
Yeah, the vocal delivery I think is more similar to the demo, which
Yeah.
I kind of prefer.
Wake up time.
The rocker version, slightly
This
kind
was a
of
big like revelation when American Treasure came out.
yeah. It's just kind of like well, first of all, it's Stan on drums, which
That's
it's like
right.
a recurring theme. Anytime there's a version of a Wildflower song with Stan on drums, it just
Mhm.
has like a Heartbreakers feel. Where without him, it does feel a little bit more like Tom Petty solo. Even
Right.
though there's not too many differences. Because you got Benmont, you got Mike, you got Howie in a lot of these songs.
hmm
Um, yeah, this
I think they
version is great.
understood. I think the others understood what he was doing.
Yeah, and I do prefer the album version better,
Oh yeah, of course.
but this one is cool. It's very whoa. Like imagine if this had been a Heartbreakers record.
Yeah, and it
Which
just
lots,
showed the strength of the song
yeah,
itself.
and then you wrap up everything.
Another new.
New song. It was recorded August of 1992.
So it had to be like very early.
Yes, and they make it seem like it was never intended for Wildflowers.
Probably not.
Um, it does say that it was recorded around the same time as the alternative version of White Kip Time that we just talked about.
Okay, so those early sessions with Stan probably.
Yep. So it's a cool song. But
It is.
it really sounds like a Heartbreaker song. It doesn't like it sounds like old school. Like not
Doesn't even
quite.
sound like a Heartbreaker song. It just sounds very
No,
experimental. I
it does
can't
sound
think,
different. I love the opening.
yeah, I
There's just like
can't
this
think of like
chord.
any other song of theirs previously that it resembles.
That's a good point. Even though I think it sounds like a Heartbreaker song, it doesn't like have a specific sound to it.
I,
But it's
I
cool. I
mean,
love the bass playing on it.
I could almost say you two in a way, but
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. It's
very
it's
like
it's melodic in a surprising
lot of
way.
it's like very open, like almost something that you would like picture from like Joshua Tree, maybe
Yeah, it is.
back
Yeah, it
then.
does have that kind of spacious sound to it. Um, I don't. It is weird that like this song was included on the box set and not Lonesome Dave or Louise or the 13 Days cover. But I mean, we can nitpick all we want. But
Right,
I'm hey, I'd rather take this song on this box set than not have it at all.
right.
But yeah, that's Wildflowers. That's all the rest for
Yeah,
now.
this was
I
a
mean,
blast.
until there's more that they find. But drop us a comment and let us know what you think of this box set. What are your favorite inclusions? What are some things you wish they had changed?
Mhm.
All that good stuff. And yeah, thanks for being on another episode.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy we got to finish Wildflowers project.
Yeah, it feels complete now, full circle.
Yes.
So But yeah, until next time, we hope you take care and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.